Good morning, good morning, good morning, Joy Seekers. Deb McGregor here with your Infusion of Joy. As you know, I told you that something special was coming, and it is. We are starting our summer series with Infusion of Joy, and I am so happy to welcome my friend, Jocelyn Flowers. Welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Woo! I'm so excited that you're here. This is just great.
I'm excited to be here.
You're kicking off the summer series, girl.
I know. It's like, whoo, here we are.
I feel excited. Like, okay, phew, here we go. So first of all, we need to let people know who you are and what is the Sanctuarian.
Yes, absolutely. So the Sanctuarian actually came about from an event. So by trade, I'm a professional organizer and productivity specialist. And I do social media management as well. So I kind of bundle all of that together. But the coined term, the Sanctuarian, came from an event where I was explaining to some of the guests, all the things that I do, because I do an array of different tasks. And they were like, you're like a sanctuarian. You just kind of bring the peace back in and give everybody their own sanctuary. And I was like, that's exactly what I do. And it just took off from there. And I was like, and fully embodied it. And it just means so much to me, just personally, about the work that I do. And I try to bring that forward with each of the clients that I work with.
Yeah. I love the word productivity specialist because so many of us are busy doing, right? And it's not necessarily productive. And you actually help people get to that place.
Yes. So with my virtual assistant and social media management clients, my sole job is to help kind of create a structure around different tasks for them and kind of keep the time management and help weed out the tasks that aren't really needed or aren't beneficial at that particular moment. Now, I'm not saying those can be beneficial later on. It's just kind of being strategic with when we're going to put those out. And then I organize all of those in nice little files for everyone so everyone knows where to go as I'm working with them on a weekly basis. It just kind of helps make their life a little bit easier and a little less stressful because they already know where it's going to be. They know when it's going out. And they don't have to worry about taking the time out to think about that during the day.
I love this. And who doesn't want that? And of course, the name Sanctuary, right? I mean, it just completely makes sense. I'm just curious, is this something you knew you wanted to do your entire life? Or did you wake up one day and say, oh, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah. So actually growing up, my grandmother and my mother were they kept very tidy homes. And it was always interesting seeing how they would rearrange the different rooms in their houses and just kind of creating a little bit better function. My mom ran daycare out of our house for 20 years. So our house structure was always changing. And so getting to see the different ways that they incorporated different organizational elements and just kind of positioning of furniture and things like that in your house, it really kind of sparked that interest in me. And so literally once I got into kind of middle school, high school, I was rearranging my room probably once a month because I wanted to see different ways that it would work better. And using different organizational systems, the standards like your organizational drawer bins, shelving, things like that. And I just wanted to play with different ways to kind of position them, even organizing the items that are on those shelves, whether they're in containers, whether they're just loose on the shelf, playing around with different things. And that really kind of helped when I decided to actually go into the organizing as a business, because every home I walk into is completely different. So you have to make sure that the system you're creating is the system that's going to work best for the family that's living in the home, not just for that picture perfect look.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just curious if you are willing to share, how many times have you rearranged your office?
Oh,
that's the money question.
that's happened even more frequent than my room or any other part of the house. Yeah. Because it doesn't matter what my workload is I don't like the files over here. Okay, I'm going to switch them over here and see how that function works better, kind of getting the flow. And my workspace has to be clear. I am someone who has anxiety. So when I have things everywhere, that causes stress for me. So having different organizational systems actually helps manage my anxiety as well, which is another aspect that I wanted to kind of bring in, because I do know a lot of people that have excessive clutter do often suffer from anxiety as well. That can be brought on by that clutter. So when they have the chance to actually get rid of that, it takes a huge weight off their shoulders, and you can really see a change in them, and just see the joy that comes out when they get to see their space.
Yeah. Oh, you said the magic word, joy, 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 joy. So
Yes.
let's talk about this amazing work that you're doing in the world and the joy that you are bringing to others and also to yourself. So talk about the joy place for you.
Yeah. So working with clients, whether it's in the virtual assistant productivity realm or in their actual homes, the joy that I see is just, one, they're getting their time back because we're making a space more efficient for them. And also they get to see the transformation from what it used to be to what it can be. And that's just magical. And now it's a little bit different when you're in a home working with someone, because they actually get to see the physical changes happening. But when I'm working with those virtual assistant clients, when they're getting to see just how smoothly things are running, how quickly things are able to get out, where, let's say, a social media post may have taken them an hour to 2 hours to get everything right, make sure that everything's fitting correctly. And now they can get it out. They can get multiple posts out and scheduled within that hour, is a huge time saver for them. I'm very big on saving time. Nobody wants to just work every hour. So if we can figure out how to use that time more efficiently, that's my game. And that makes me so excited. I also just love learning. I love learning different organizational strategies, whether it be in a home or whether it be virtually. I research different softwares. I research different kind of organizational tools that people are using nowadays. The Container Store, that's my happy place.
Oh my God.
That is where I find so much joy. So I love going into the Container Store just to see like what new products have come out, because they're always changing. Yes, you still have your like standard plastic totes, you still have your wicker baskets, but the way that they're changing them nowadays to make them more efficient, more sustainable as well. Because, back they used to be so flimsy, now they're getting really sturdy. So those are things that really help when you're reorganizing a space, because you want things to last. You don't want something that's just going to be a temporary fix.
Right. That's what I love about what you're bringing up, is that it's not just about a one and done. You're actually going in and helping people to understand, okay, why do you have all this clutter sitting there in the first place? Let's really get to the root of this. And then let's find a system that works for you. And I love that you said that not one size doesn't fit all. It's different for everyone. And by the way, I just picture you walking into the Container Store and your eyes go like this big. And it's like, where do I start? Where do I start? Jess is in the house. Yes. I can picture it. And isn't it great when you're helping someone else to take their money and go to the Container Store, right? Because you can have so much fun. I mean, really, how can that not be fun? Well, one of the words, go ahead, Joss.
And one of the things too is when I do take clients into different stores, because the Container Store is not the only store where you can find organizational products. If you have a local Walmart, you have a Target, you have a Meijer, which Meijer's is popular in the East Coast. So you just have to kind of learn. It's a little bit of a learning curve for some, because you may walk down the aisle and not really know the functions that each of these items can have, because a lot of them have multiple functions. So you may be able to have a drawer organizer that works perfect for your kitchen, can also work perfect for your office or your bathroom. It's figuring out how to use it. If you have a drawer, it's going to be perfect for that. I've also used drawer organizers as actual desktop organization, because I was able to stand them up and stack things. So it's just playing around with each of those items and figuring out what's going to work best in your home or your workspace.
Yeah, I love that. One of the words that keeps coming up for me as you're talking about, like, this is about getting your freedom back. Because when
Yes.
you get rid of that clutter and you can actually have a way to move around, like there's a freedom in that. So,
Yes.
can you speak to me, like, what gets in the way of dealing with that clutter for people?
The biggest thing that really aids to clutter buildup is a sentimental attachment or the fear of missing out that they're going to need that down the line. Oh, I'm going to need that for later. Well, then get it later. Right now, you don't need it, and it's taking up space that can be used more efficiently in a different way. And with the sentimental things, I've had clients that have kept 20-year-old T-shirts because they remember going to that concert 20 years ago and that experience. Now this T-shirt is full of holes, has stains all over it, but they don't want to get rid of it. And I've had clients too that turned old T-shirts into rags. Oh, but I'm repurposing it, so it's good, right? No, because that starts to build up. Because you start just tearing up extra T-shirts that now you have an excess amount of rags. So it's finding the balance really. And yes, there are certain things that obviously you want to pass down generationally. So those are things you just have to get in strategic in how you're going to store them and where you're going to place them in the home to kind of avoid the clutter. And then there's other things that you really just need to sit down and say, does it bring me joy? Is it something that I'm using on a regular basis? Is it something that's seasonal? Because that's a different thing, something else you have to consider when you're organizing a space, because then it helps you decide on how you want to store that if you do happen to keep it, if it's seasonal, rather than having it just kind of all thrown up in your house, so to speak.
So, I know you're
Yes,
originally from Michigan. I know you're in California now, but can we
yes.
just take a moment to appreciate the fact that when you live in these Midwestern climates, the extremes of these seasons are just
Yes.
that. They are extreme. Literally,
Mhm.
the bins to fill up our winter boots, our hats, our mittens, our big heavy, right? This is a real
Exactly.
thing.
Yes. And the biggest thing, tip that I can give those who do live in these climates where you do see multiple seasons is make sure any storage tote or bin that you have, one is waterproof and water resistant. Another one is that it's airtight, because if it's not airtight, that's when you get the mildew, you get the mold, you get all that extra moisture in there. And that's where also you get the little critters that end up getting into the things and ruining it without you even knowing it. And so you have to pull it out for that season the next year. Um, and also just make sure that if you are storing anything on the ground, that it is elevated, especially if it's in your garage, or like in Michigan, we have Michigan basements that generally aren't finished, always leak somewhere, no matter how many times you repair it. So you want to just make sure that you are preparing for those elements in the items that you're choosing to store everything.
And I can speak from experience. This is a real thing. We, in the past, we learned our lesson. We did not buy appropriate bins, and when we went to get something out the next season, we realized that a mouse thought he found a new house, and so it was. I mean, you can imagine the scene. It was something out of a horror movie, and needless to
Yes.
say, the entire everything went into the garbage because, of course, I worry about all kinds of other things that come because of that. But
Mhm.
I'm glad you're bringing this up for people because the type of container does make a difference.
Yes.
Now, can you speak? Some people like glittery type of containers, and some people like, cute. You could have a whole flower line of containers, little cute flowers on
Yes.
them. It go with your name,
Absolutely.
right?
I mean,
Yeah, talk about that.
I'm all for having the different colors, having the different designs. But again, make sure that it's fitting the area. So especially when you're organizing and storing anything under any sink, a bathroom sink, a kitchen sink, even like a mud room, you want to make sure that you can have that decorative basket, but you're not going to want to have cloth under anywhere that's going to have moisture. That's where you're going to start to get the mold and mildew. Another thing too is, for instance, like if you're organizing your children's playroom, you want to make sure whatever those bins are, even if they're decorative, they are durable. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced children going for toys out of a bin. It can be a little crazy sometimes. So you want to make sure that those bins are going to be able to hold up to that as well. The Container Store has these, one of my best friends is having a baby. So I've been able to work with her on kind of picking out different things for the nursery. And we found these amazing cloth bins for the nursery that have all these different little animals on them. So I love having the little decorative things. But again, there's no moisture, so we can go with a cloth bin. And another, they reinforce them actually with a plastic liner, so it helps keep them a little bit more sturdy. So it's just kind of, again, being strategic about it and making sure that wherever you're having it, it's going to fit that climate in the space.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, obviously, with COVID, some of what you are doing has been impacted. I know with the virtual assistant work, obviously, that's virtually anyway. You do some in person with that. But talk to us about, how does an organizer work with someone virtually?
So the pandemic definitely changed that. Everyone got very uncomfortable about having people.
Yeah, do we think?
Which makes total sense. I personally chose to, with previous clients, they could call me and FaceTime me, and we would work through an issue or an area that they were having clutter problems with. I chose not to take on any new clients. I didn't want that to be their primary experience, because the real changes happen when I'm able to be in the home working one-on-one with them and actually explaining the different strategies that I'm using and seeing why it works. And I'm proud to say it doesn't work every time, but then we work out a new strategy for them, because you don't really know if something's going to work until you've tried it for a certain time period, because it may look great first couple of days. It's awesome. Then it starts to turn into more of a time thing, where it is actually taking more time to fold the shirts a certain way that make it look better and more efficient in the drawer. So then we have to figure out a different strategy for that. Now, I've know a lot of different organizers, both in New York, because that's where I started my business, that did go full virtually with their organizational. And it's hard because you have to go based off of photographs. You have to go based off of just a quick video chat that doesn't have great lighting. You're not able to see it actually in person, see what all of the issues are. And kind of the surroundings that go into it as well, because you may see a space on a video chat and it misgauges the distance and the size of the space. So then when you're creating that floor plan, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So that's one thing I did notice with the change for the home organization side.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not like you have not been busy doing work for people. I mean, the pandemic has been amazing with all the working at home people. I'm sure for you, the virtual assistance piece is been really busy.
Yes. The pandemic, oddly enough, was very beneficial for me. I was able to bring on 33 clients in the last year, virtually.
Let's take a moment to celebrate.
Yes. Just in the virtual assistant and social media management side of things, which that's a whole different realm for me of organization and creativity. That just sparked a little bit more joy because I got to be creative, and each client I work with has a different type of business. They have kind of a different method to their madness in the way that they do business. And so getting to learn all of those different things and experience all of these different types of businesses and professions and figuring out how can I help them get their message out there better. That's exciting to me because, again, we're trying new strategies. We're always learning along the way. And so, yeah, this last year's been very exciting and a little hectic, but yeah, good overall.
A lot of people. And obviously, you're in a position where then you too get to bring on others to help you as well. which
Yes.
is amazing, and just a testament to the growth that you're experiencing, and being an amazing entrepreneur. And I can imagine, again, this joy piece extends further, because your clients, the people that you're helping, they get more joy and freedom because you're releasing some of that, because it's probably the things they don't want to do in the first place.
Yes. A lot of the things that I handle virtually is a lot of those back end administrative things that, you have to do as a business owner, but don't really want to do. So when you can have someone who can get it done quickly and efficiently for you and take that time off your hands, so you're able to do something else with it. You're able to enjoy your family more. You're able to go on vacation. You're able to kind of have a little bit more adventures and freedom in what you want to do. If you don't want to do anything and just have that free time, you can. And the same thing with social media. Social media is one thing that nobody really likes to do, unless you're a social media manager or creator. So it's another thing that brings a lot of stress, because there's so many different things you have to take into account when you are doing social media campaigns, depending on what platforms you're using, because each of those platforms have a different sizing requirement for any image that you put out.
Yep.
They have different character requirements for any kind of captions or writing that you put on there. So it's a lot for someone who is not well versed in each of those platforms to take on a full social media marketing plan, where I kind of take off that stress for them.
Well, it's sort of this proverbial, as an entrepreneur, like, how on earth, like, we're expected to do everything. It doesn't even make sense, because if I'm really good at what I do in the world, how am I also expected to be good at this other thing? Like, we're expecting people to do everything, and that's just not realistic. They're different skill sets, different things we do. So I love that there's people like you that are able to help us with that little burden. So we need to give people a little secret sauce from you, which is sort of like maybe your top little organizing, like, ooh, this is Jocelyn's secret sauce or something. We want to, and we know people have been waiting for the secret sauce from you, right? Because they're like, I want that little tip that's just going to help me move forward. So let's give a little your secret sauce.
Absolutely. Since we went a little bit on the business side today, I'm going to give you just 3 tips to organize your office. So the biggest thing to organize and declutter your office is make sure you have a clear workspace. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be completely empty. You just want to make sure that you don't have multiple things stacked. One thing I love using is the, let's see if I can show you here. I have a few things here. I brought some things with me.
Oh, good. We like it. We like visuals.
So this is just a little magazine holder. I got it for, I think, like $3 at Walmart. I actually use it to store client folders. So I'm able to take those folders, instead of being just stacked all over the desk or scattered, and store them into one little section. So it fits in a nice little corner on the desk. Another thing too is I have drawer organizers. I brought all the goods here. So this is one that I got on Amazon. So it's, again, just organizes all of those different office supplies that everyone uses, whether it's the pens, highlighters, things like that, because that then takes that also off my desk. And the last thing too is, a lot of us now, that since we've had to go virtual with our businesses, is we have multiple screens. So figuring out a way to kind of organize those in a way, I use risers, so that I get risers that have storage in them. So it also is another way where I can store my Post-it notes, things like that, but still be able to see everything and keep the actual desk surface nice and clear. Again, like I said, that causes anxiety for me. So if I can have a nice clear workspace, that's one way to help with the decluttering, and definitely the productivity, because if I'm worrying about everything that's on the desk, I'm not focusing on the work at hand.
Yeah, I love those 3 tips, and they are so useful. And I was literally looking around at my space going, she is so right. Because when I have my dust. I'm not even turning my camera for you to see it right now. I think it could cause anxiety just looking at it for you. And what I know is that when I do take the time to have it organized, I think more clearly, I can sit down, I can get things done, and it increases my productivity. And
Yes.
that's what I love about people like you in place, whether it's somebody that you are looking for to help increase productivity with the business side by freeing up the social media and by freeing up some of those tasks that are in that genre, or it's the, hey, let's get a snapshot of your office. Let's get that office and organize. And not that you don't do the home too. I know there's a lot of business owners out there that forget this is important. It's actually, I call it business self-care. Like, talk about self-care for us, but this is business self-care. It's framed a little bit differently, and there's this little distinction around it. But if we don't take the time for business self-care, our offices turn into the piles and the things, and then you can't find anything in it. And I think sometimes we lie to ourselves, oh, but I know exactly where everything is. What we forget about is the piece, the space that's taken up in our minds. And there is an impact for that.
Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned that, because I've had clients tell me that I'm just an organized mess. It's fine. I know where everything's at. And I always bring up to them, I was like, well, you wouldn't have called me if everything was working in that way. So, and what, even with my virtual assistant clients that I work with, I ask them, well, what is your workspace like? Because that could be something too that's taking up time that you're not even thinking about. It's just very unconscious, where that is playing into the productivity side of things. Yes, you may have a lot on your plate, and I'm happy to take some of those tasks off your hands. But there's other things to incorporating it, because even if I'm able to take those off and you're getting that time back and still having a hard time getting things accomplished, there's something else in play with that. Yeah. So I always ask, well, what's your workspace like? How are you functioning in that workspace? Because that, again, takes just that time you're not thinking about. Because you're not thinking about, okay, it's taking me 5 minutes to pull up what I need to on the computer because I'm worried about the papers that are stacked on the desk. You're not thinking about that. So that's another thing too, is just be aware of your surroundings and see how it's triggering you, whether you're noticing it right away or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Jocelyn, I feel like we could go on and on and on. And I also know that we are good at setting boundaries because we're organized peoples, right?
Yes.
And so I know there may be people out there that feel like they want more information from you, or maybe they just want to go over those tips again with you. Where should they get in contact with you?
Yes, absolutely. So you can find me on my website, which is jflowersorganizing.com. And I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So you can message me on any of those platforms, and I look forward to hearing from you.
That's awesome. And let's make sure, I mean, seriously, start following Jocelyn today, because she's always putting up new tips, new ideas, a strategy for you to use. She actually also does things during different times of the year where she brings in professionals to interview them as well on how they are a part of creating that life of sanctuary. I love this concept of the sanctuary, because who couldn't use a little more sanctuary in their lives? And I love that you are helping to bridge that gap. And in that place of sanctuary, you're helping people find joy.
Yes.
It's amazing. You are joy. Look at you. That's joy everywhere. So Jocelyn, thank you so much for joining us today for Infusion of Joy. And we want to thank all of you for choosing to come to Infusion of Joy today. Now, remember, we're doing our summer series. So every Wednesday, we have a special guest, just like Jocelyn was today. Next week, we've got Sherry Larson with the Moorhead Business Association. But remember all those other little days during the week, Monday through Friday at 8 o'clock, I do an Infusion of Joy. Yeah, it's just moi, but I do try to grab a good topic that'll hopefully give you a little bit of wisdom and enlighten you and give you some places to look for more investigation of your own. So thanks again for being here, everyone. Have an amazing day. We wish you abundance, blessings, peace, and joy.
Joy.
Joy. Okay, we could start singing, but we won't. Joss will probably start dancing, but we won't. All right, friends, have a beautiful day.
Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Bye.